The Nikon Z5 was just announced last week. It is the newest addition to Nikon's Z lineup. It offers a ton of features at a great price point. I thought about my initial thoughts and opinions. I'm going to give those to you in this video. What's up guys, Project Photography back in another video, and today I'm really excited to see the Nikon camera with another Z camera. This thing has been on Nikon rumors for quite some time now, and I'm actually really glad to see it come to fruition. It's Nikon's entry full frame camera to get people into the mirrorless system to start off with, and it's going to be priced right under the Nikon Z6 but right above the Nikon Z50. It's going to be that camera that gets people into the full frame system at such a great price point. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions about this camera in this video. But first, I'll go over the specs for you guys. So first of all, it sports a Nikon Z mount because this is a Z camera. It has a 24.3 megapixel non-BSI sensor. It offers dual UHS-2 SD card slots. It has 4.5 frames per second. It has 273 phase detect autofocus points. It has IBIS. It has 4K 1.7 times crop though. Has no 120p slow motion. It can only shoot up to 60 frames per second in 1080. It has an autofocus joystick, same EVF as a Z6 and Z7. No top deck LCD as a tilting screen, and it will cost $13.99 for the body alone. Now, when looking at these specs initially, I thought, wow, Nikon really didn't skimp out on this camera, and they included a lot of what made the Z6 great and included it into Nikon Z5. And that's one thing that I think Nikon did a great job with this camera for. The Nikon Z6 really beats this camera out in two things. First of all, the fast frames per second shooting. The Nikon Z6 has 12 frames per second max burst versus this camera has 4.5 frames per second. And the other department where the Nikon Z6 beats this is in video. You know, the Nikon Z6 can output raw video, and it can also shoot N-Log at 10-bit 422 at 4K 30 uncropped. Also can shoot 1080 120p slow motion, which is also great and something I use a lot for my B-roll. But other than that, the Nikon Z6 actually shares a lot with the Z5. And that's something that is really important they carried over, like having autofocus joystick. In the Z50, they didn't have an autofocus joystick, and now they do. And I think that's absolutely crucial. You know, if you've used any Nikon camera or any camera with a joystick, you'll know how important it is and how it makes navigating through the menus and using your autofocus points and just moving around way quicker. And that is one thing that I was really hoping that they'd include in the Z5, and they did. Another complaint that people had about the Z6 and Z7 and even the Z50 is the fact that it only had one card slot. The Z6 and Z7 granted had XQD card slots, which I personally love. So they fixed that. With the Z5, they have two UHS-2 card slots. And I just love that they're able to include that in here. They didn't skip out any features. They're including everything in here. Same thing like the EVF and things like the autofocusing system is the exact same. So Nikon really made this camera something great. And another important inclusion I think that was absolutely necessary was the fact that it has IBIS. In-body image stabilization is so important. It's what makes this full frame system so good. The fact that you can stabilize lenses that aren't normally stabilized, like pretty much most of the Z series lenses. And I love that a lot. And the best part is, all this in the same package for only $13.99. That's pretty good considering how much you get. When you look at something like the Canon EOS RP, it's a really dumbed down camera. No joystick, has really bad video output, and it's just not a great camera compared to something like the Z5. The Z5 has way more features, but granted the Z5 is a little bit more expensive. But Nikon is notorious for having a ton of rebates. They kind of price their cameras at a certain level and then bring it down over time. Like the Z6 is around $17.99, I want to say, and it's a great price point for it. And I guarantee they're going to do the same thing with Z5. They'll probably bring it down to something like $1,100 or probably $1,200, and at that point it's a perfect camera to pick up. And the great part is that this camera is made for people who don't need fast action. So it's pretty much majority of photography. Landscape photographers would love this. People who shoot wedding and events would love this thing. Street photography, portrait photography, anything you can think of that isn't named sports, action, wildlife. And I think people are going to love using this thing. The ergonomics of Z6 and Z7 are absolutely incredible. The menus are great. Joystick is great. Just how the camera operates is great. And I have no doubt in my mind that the Z5 is going to operate in a similar fashion. And the fact that it actually upgrades some parts, like having two card slots is an upgrade to one. They didn't take anything away from this camera that made the Z6 and Z7 so important. And of course they had to discriminate between their two models. The fact that, you know, you can't have the full 12 frames per second shooting, or the fact that the video is not going to be up to par. But it doesn't mean that the video on Z5 is going to be lousy. I can guarantee that the video is going to be great. The output is still going to be good, just not up to the standards of the Z6 and Z7, which is perfectly fine because video shooters were probably already planning to keep the Z6 and Z7 anyways. This thing is going to be a great second body. It's going to be great for people getting into the Nikon Z system. It's going to be great for people who don't need those fast frames per second or video. For me personally, if I had to go and pick up another camera, it would probably be this camera, because if we're being honest, I could totally use a second body. That and the Z6 would make a great combo. I have a 14-30 on my Z6, and then I have a, let's say it's like the 70-300 on a Z5. Great 1-2 punch right there, and I could see this camera being in a lot of people's toolkits. So I'm personally really happy about this camera coming out. This camera is at a great price point. I think it has a lot of features for the money, and I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this camera. You know, a lot of people said, oh, I didn't want to get into the Z system because there's no camera at this price point with dual card slots. And when you think about it, there's really no other full frame camera at this price point with dual card slots. That's something that a lot of people would really think about when they switch over to the Nikon Z systems. The fact that, you know, $1,400, full frame, dual card slots, joystick, IBIS, like, that's a lot of features for something for only $13.99. Yeah, as you guys can tell, I'm pretty excited about this camera. If I were to say anything, I'd really wish they actually included a full-out flip screen for the Z5, because if you think about the price point that this is at, it makes sense that, you know, they'd have a full-out flip screen. For photography specifically, I'd actually rather have just a tilt screen. And for me, a Z5 at that price point, you know, it could totally have a flip out screen, and I think it would make it easier for me shooting videos as well. That's the only thing I really wish I had, but other than that, this camera is great. I love how they didn't skip out anything, and I think at the price point it's at, it's absolutely perfect. It's going to make its way into a lot of people's bags, and I'm very excited for it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below, whether you'd want to pick up a Nikon Z5, or just your overall thoughts and opinions. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my video. Comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.